Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first afternoon session. Take your digital rights further. I think we're going to sort of probably expand from that topic and talk about the VOD space in general. Can I ask everybody to turn their phones off, please? That was a fortuitous ring I heard at the beginning. So phones off. Thank you. We didn't turn up to hear your ringtone. So my name's Jess Cleverly. I'm the creative director at Wildseed Studios. We're an IP incubator in London, and I'm extremely excited to be here today to talk to such an esteemed panel of VOD titans as this. And I love it in an emerging market because all the competitors sit and talk nicely and joke and share insights. And I'll be interested to see if you're all still doing that when you're ruling the world. You'll all be surrounded by your people. But for now, they're all very friendly, and they're going to share, I'm sure. Let me just quickly introduce who we have today. We have, right next to me here is Suk Park, who's the co-CEO of DramaFever Corp in America. Next to him is Jason Njoku, who's the co-founder and CEO of iROKO Partners in Nigeria. Next to him is Sergey Kornikhin, thank you, who's the senior vice president and general producer of IVI.ru in Russia. And at the end is Sara, who's the Director of Business Development of Viki in Singapore. And the way we're going to run this session is each of the panelists is going to give you a brief presentation of how they came into being and where they are today. And then we're going to have a discussion about what the opportunity is here, not just from the point of view of the platforms, but from the point of view of the producers, the distributors, and indeed the broadcasters. I'm guessing we're going to be able to tell who the broadcasters are by the nervous look on your faces. Then we're going to have a discussion about what are the challenges facing the space, and followed by we're going to explore what some of the strategic responses to those challenges are, and then we're going to round up with a discussion of where's all this headed, and where does the panel feel that we might be in 5 years' time. And if we have time, we'll have questions, and at the end, I think everyone's kindly agreed to make themselves available for a chat outside for about 15 minutes. So if you'd like to chat to any of the panelists in person, then do hang around afterwards. First of all, can I just have a show of hands? Who in this room would define themselves as a producer? And who in this room would define themselves as a distributor? And who in this room would define themselves as a broadcaster? Okay, interesting. Thank you very much. Right, so actually quite a fair split, and slightly fewer producers maybe than I'd have expected. Okay, so let's begin with Sara. So if you want to take to the podium, Sara, that'd be great. Thank you. I think the mics are all working up there.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. So, you have great content. The likes of Battlestar Galactica, Falling Skies, and you want to distribute it globally. How do you decide where to start? And how do you do it cost effectively? So my name is Sara. Prior to Viki, I spent 3 years at Warner Brothers, so doing content licensing in new media in Asia, actually on the TV side. So I know a little bit about the content business. Going back to now, what I do now. So I'm a part of Viki, and I'm responsible for business development. That includes content acquisition. So Viki, who are we? We are global TV powered by fans. So what we do is we license content from all over the world, and we take that content and take it global. And we do so by localizing it through the power of our community. And our community actually translate those content in up to 160 languages around the world. And so through Viki, our content partners actually have the opportunity to access new markets and extend the shelf life of their content through localization, as well as they're able to enhance the effectiveness of their international distribution strategy through the data analytics and insights that we're able to provide. And so ultimately what we do is we enable them to unlock the value of the audiences globally. So one of the news that you might have heard is that we've recently been acquired by Rakuten, which is the 4th largest internet services company around the world. And with Rakuten, our ambition is to become a 300 million user service, and we're now fully funded to go after it. So today, Viki has already a global footprint with 23 million users from around the world. That includes actually large pockets in North America, South America, Southeast Asia, Europe, as well as of Q3, China. And we are accessible cross-platform, PC, mobile, connected TV, and with viewers who are able to access up to 17,000 hours of primetime content from around the world. No UGC videos. And together, Viki fans have actually translated these content in more than 400 million words. So put that into context, it's about 10,000 novels. So I don't know how much of a room it will fill up, but it sounds like quite a bit. So our users actually, they socialize on our platform, and while doing so, they're opening up new markets for their favorite shows. And in fact, their actions provide us insights about content which otherwise wouldn't be available. So for instance, from their interactions, we're able to know that the largest market for Korean movies is actually Saudi Arabia, and that for Taiwanese dramas, it's France and Brazil. So this is actually the power of our community. So we do license content from over 50 countries around the world, and already today, we work with some of the largest broadcasters and content production companies around the world. So why is any of this important in the context of the topic today? And the answer is quite simple. What we are able to do is to help supersize the pie so that you as content production companies, as broadcasters, as distributors are able to have more opportunities to monetize. So for instance, when we launched this year a Japanese TV series, Innocent Lilies, simulcast with TV Asahi, it was within 48 hours translated into 16 different languages and garnered millions of views from all over the world. Some of the top countries were actually Mexico, Philippines, US, and also China. And in fact, our data suggests that Japanese and Taiwanese content are poised to become sort of the next Korean content. So we're very excited about that. And in China this year, we launched season 3 of Falling Skies, the Steven Spielberg production, in June, day and day with US, and garnered 35 million video views. So that is essentially overall a larger audience in Viki, on Viki in China for this particular content than all of US on TNT. So we do have distribution partnerships with all the major platforms. That's Netflix, Hulu, YouTube. And in this example here, we partnered with YouTube to test out a particular content and see what the difference would be if we were to add additional subtitles. And what we found is that with the addition of subtitles, we saw anywhere between 3.2 times the growth in views counts, anywhere between 3.2 times the growth to 5 times. So in addition to our ability to find new audiences for on-air content, we're also able to extend the shelf life of library content. So typical behavior of viewership for a TV drama looks something like this, sort of peaks and valleys while you're in the online, during the on-air time frame. But at the point in which it finished broadcast, it basically takes a dip and flatlines. Now, what we saw when we launched the Taiwanese drama True Love this year, which is a 2012 title, is that as soon as it's subtitled into English, it starts to take off in view count. And then when Spanish is added, it 5x'd, so a 5x multiple. And then adding Bahasa to it, another incremental 2x. So we saw a pattern much like what you see here. And in this example, the red line actually shows you a title that's been on our service for more than 40 months and has continued to gain audience from around the world. And what you see with the bump at the very end of that red line is actually addition of Romanian language. Yeah. So net, take your digital rights further. How do we do that? Identify new monetization opportunities and extend the shelf life of your content. So back to that original question, which is you've got great content and you want to distribute it globally. How do you do that? Where do you start? And how do you do it cost efficiently? As the global destination that is available anywhere, anytime, on any device, with access to data, analytics, and insight that allow us to identify what's popular and where, we believe that we're well positioned to be able to help you unlock that particular value. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Sergey, tell us all.
Thank you all for coming. 2 years ago, you would expect like only the first row of this whole area to be crowded because no one would really understand the term VOD, and we would go around and say, explain ourselves once in a while. But now we can see that we're finally, maybe mostly thanks to Netflix and Hulu of the world, but we've established the category and we can see the growing interest here. So unlike Viki here, we've decided to start from our domestic market. We're coming from Russia, and we are the largest video service in Russia nowadays. And why would one think of getting a VOD service in Russia? We have, unlike many of you would imagine, the broadband internet penetration is more than 70% and growing, and we have almost more than 90% of the population of Russia getting online through broadband or mobile networks, which is huge. And we hold the third place in Europe if we take all the audience of video resources, which also, in the world, and first one in Europe, which basically makes us the biggest watchers, online watchers. On the other hand, you have extremely active piracy, and anything you get out there, major content, Russian best series or movies, it gets copied in a second, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. On the other hand, you have a very little developed pay TV market, which means that the people are not really used to paying for stuff. So, on the other hand, and that makes me three-handed already, but Russia has a unique set of independent web resources, so none of the global internet players have won the place yet. We have Google of Russia, which is Yandex. We have Kontakte of Russia, which is Facebook of Russia, which is Kontakte. So we really see that our population sticks to the local resources and doesn't really care about the international stuff. It doesn't mean that the Google and Facebook do not exist, but they still hold the second position. So this all gave our investors and us the idea of maybe trying and launch the video service. No UGC content, just a professional video service, and so we did it. And we're now the largest one, and we've crossed the line of 20 million unique visitors, and we're getting to a 25 number by the end of the year. And this is just one country alone, as you can imagine. And it's basically we have 130 to 150 million people living in there. So it's we can see that the amount of users that we can get is pretty astonishing. These people generate a lot of video views, and again, unlike Viki here, we tend to be more or less a broadcaster, because we really see that the model of consumption that is taking off is the smart TV consumption. So because here at the beginning of this you can see that it was pretty small, but then when we launched mobile devices and when we launched smart TV, it just rocketed, and it's still going up there. So what do we have as a service? Since we have such a large audience, we decided to use it not once but 3 times. So we have a basic service which serves animation, movies, series, and TV shows. We have music portal, which is basically a VOD of Russia. We've got all the major studios on board and all the Russian content, and it's music clips, and it's also rocketing. And we've got the kids portal, which is basically doubling every month, I would say, because the kids are just once they start to use it, they don't give up. Especially we see it happening on the smart TVs and iPads. It seems like the parents are giving iPads to the kids and then they just leave them with them. So we have less applications than than Viki here. We have less installations, but it seems to drive much more consumption, and as you can see, we're on all mobile devices and all smart TVs you can think of. We are guessing at PlayStations and other game consoles, but they're not that developed in Russia, unfortunately. We still have a very big segment of online gaming, so this is where our core audience is. And we can see that the dedication that we get from our users get us to a very unique position. We are on the 5th place in the world on Samsung, which is like, we would imagine that consumption in Korea or Japan or China would be significantly better, but we are the 5th place with just our small figures, and it is the consumption that we get from our users and the time that they spend with us. And it's the same with LG. We are in top 3 applications on LG Smart TV worldwide again, and in Russia on iOS for iPad we're number 3 application, which is also a huge thing. So this is where we are. Sorry?
The news is so good. So much good news. It's tedious, right?
Oh, come on. We haven't been yet bought as Viki, so we're trying to speed things up. I'm trying to dance my dance here. So the basic monetization model is advertising, and as you can see, 95% of the catalog is AVOD based, and we've got SVOD and TVOD as a small parts there, and it's all mostly major driven content because they wouldn't give away content for free, and they want people to pay for it. So we're struggling to get those models running. We've got some traction on TVOD, a little less traction on SVOD. As I've told you, people are don't really understand the conception of paying for stuff in Russia when you can get it online with the pirates. But we have this year we have a law that's been adopted that finally enables us to fight the piracy. So we hope that the most of the revenue still comes from the advertising, but we hope that the paid part will catch up with that. And as I've told you, we've got all the major studios on board. We've got all the major independent producers on board from all around the world, and we are very proud of that trust that they gave us. And we are exploring new niches. We're exploring Korean content and Asian content as a whole, because it turns out it's a new thing. And we're very open to content deals. Don't think that if it is only one local market, it's small. It can bring you really good opportunities and get you to a new level of revenues. That's.
Thank you. Jason, tell us.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jason Njoku, founder of iROKO TV. Okay, so people call us the Netflix of Africa. Unfortunately, we're not. We're more like Hulu or DramaFever, at least we're trying to be. We started in December 2011. Really simply, Nigeria has a very, very large feature film market called Nollywood, and we basically distribute that content globally. So we have no geo-lock-in. We pretty much were the first people to ever actually legally license from the industry. And when these guys talk about production houses, they talk about actual companies. In Nigeria, it's typically private individuals who have funded these movies privately themselves, released them to the market, and tried to find distribution primarily in Nigeria. So, for example, 97% of the Nollywood industry is actually built on a VCD, which was the predecessor of DVD. It's actually built on that. So a very popular Nollywood movie can sell like 1 million copies at about $1 or $2 in Nigeria. And these are primarily informal sort of kiosks, sort of people walking around in wheelbarrows in streets of like Lagos and Nigeria selling these DVDs. So there is a star system there. You may not know who that person is, but if you put her onto any street corner in anywhere in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, she will be mobbed. If you took her to any street corner, even in some of the sort of the ethnic areas of France, they'll know who she is. New York, London, globally, people know who that lady is. So all we have basically done is legally license the movies, put them online to a global audience, just to basically see what would happen. So there's about 900 million people in sub-Saharan Africa. Pay TV penetration is very, very low. I think the biggest player is DSTV there, and they have about 6.7 million subscribers, 5 million of those being in South Africa. Terrestrial TV is terrible. If anyone's ever been to any parts of Africa, typically it's not that great. In Nigeria, it's actually terrible. So there's a big market there which is just completely like underserved. And that's her being mobbed when we took her to the Johannesburg earlier this year. So anyone who's watched or who's been exposed to a Nigerian movie, what they typically say is that, it's poor quality, poor production, it looks like it's been made by a bunch of film students, the English is just completely rubbish. And to be honest, when I first discovered Nollywood in 2009, I basically had those exact same thoughts. What I actually realized was that in Nigeria there are 200 different languages, and each individual language has its own particular type of culture. There are particular types of content which really appeal to Nigerians and Africans at large. Pretty much all content is somehow grounded in some religious, primarily like Christian grounding. The people, the way they speak, there's like an Americanized English which they use in Nigeria. The accents, the names of the people, the stories that they tell. So the West has gone very nuclear in terms of its family dynamics, whereas in Africa, the extended family plays a significant role in everybody's lives. I think I have about 50 aunties and uncles in Lagos alone. So ultimately, these are African stories by Africans for Africans. We have a unique challenge in we're actually significantly smaller than everybody else, in terms of we can only currently address the 30.5 million Africans in the diaspora. So currently we have more people watching iROKO TV in New York or in London, where there's about 500,000 to 1 million sort of Africans as in expats as opposed to like African Americans. Whereas in Lagos we have hardly anybody watching, and the big issue there is the access. Of 170 million people or so, there's a couple of 100,000 who have broadband access currently in Nigeria today. But with that said, 10 years ago, there was about 150,000 GSM lines in Nigeria. Now there's about 107 million or so. So these things typically tend to change. If you look at the big sort of telcos in Africa, Nigeria is the primary market for those guys. So again, in 2009, this is how you choose an Hollywood film. This is basically like a very sexy version of how these movies are sold. Yes, true. So we're working on the distribution problem. With that said, because of the star system, most of the movies don't even have the description of the movies about them. Again, these are movies shot at a $30,000 to $50,000 budget. Again, private individuals shot in like 7 to 10 days, so they're really, fast and furious. For me as a casual observer, and obviously as now a stakeholder in the industry, like Nigerian film industry should not exist. Like, I see it as more of an economic miracle than anything else. If anyone's ever tried to operate in Lagos, where I currently live, it's probably one of the most hostile environments you'll ever find anywhere in the world. So, yeah, it was hectic, it was fragmented. The the top 3 players in any market typically control 60 to 70% of the market. In Nigeria, the top 3 players control like 1 or 2%. So it's completely fragmented. We're talking about 300 to 500 individual production houses. And these guys shoot sort of high velocity, high volume filmmaking. So one filmmaker can have like 40 or 50 movies. And again, the industry started from guys who were traders. So they could decide to trade in movie VCD discs, or they can equally trade in like computer laptops or like, mobile phone widgety type things. So we just went in there and we realigned it. It was madness. It took us a long time. We preached the view of revenue share. In Nigeria, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. They didn't really understand it, so they ignored me for the most part. Until I started bringing bags full of cash to them. Then they started to listen. The universal language in Nigeria is cash. So I basically, we dumped a huge amount of money in Nigeria where no one else had. There was no metadata. We basically had to build a team of guys in Lagos to actually just bring all the metadata out. So to get the description, we watched every single movie, year of production, everything we basically had to do ourselves. But with that said, we're, I guess, at the same stage, we're in a unique situation where we've completely realigned the window. So when a movie is shot today, and these are movies which, if there's 1,000 shot a year, and no one actually really knows what the amount is, it's somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000. About 30 of those go to theatrical release, but then there's like about 5 or 6 cinemas in Nigeria, so it's actually very, very small. We basically get those first. So we actually get the first window outside of theatre, which then goes on to DVD, VCD, and then goes on to pay TV. So in a strange way, we've actually completely reversed the window of the content here in Nigeria. So yeah, on December the 1st, 2011, we launched iROKO TV. And like everybody else, it's really simple. It's cross-platform. It's primarily a free service, so 95% of our content is free. But the brand new content, which we release free movies every single week, we ask people to pay $5 a month for that. We got over 20,000 subscribers in the last 14, 15 months since we launched that. Yeah, we have 1 million uniques, which compared to what these guys are talking about is nothing, but ultimately we are literally playing a waiting game. There is no conceivable way that, the US can be our largest market today with like 400,000 people when, there's 170 million people in Nigeria and like there's 100+ million GSM connections. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Suk, last but not least.
Hello, everyone. We have a video as means of introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Suk Park. I'm co-founder and co-CEO of DramaFever.com. I'll give you a little background about myself and my brother, who's also in the audience and who's an investor and now manages our licensing outside of the Korean content. I was born in Korea. I was raised in Spain and was educated in the US. Growing up, we didn't have many friends, so we spent a lot of time watching TV. That meant a lot of Korean dramas, Japanese anime, Golden Girls dubbed into Spanish. And out of that and some relevant work experience, we decided to create DramaFever. Now, DramaFever is right now the largest aggregator distributor of global content in North America. When I say North America, we mean the US and in Canada. Our company is based on 3 fundamental building blocks. First one is curation. It's all about the content. Content, curation. We look for the best content we can get our hands on. It could be in Spanish, it could be in Korean, it could be Japanese. We won't touch Nigerian content for now because of Jason. The second building block. The second building block of our business, premium positioning. Everything from where we insert every ad pod to the subtitling to the distribution channels that we have is premium, premium, premium. The reason is, number 3, monetization. Our clients are the content owners. So our job in North America is to ensure that while you guys work with us, we can make your content rise to the top and monetize. Let's talk about curation for a second. These are 3 titles here that we featured on DramaFever. Isabel, from La Televisión Española in Spain. Mischievous Kiss, from Fuji TV in Japan. And the upcoming Heirs with Lee Min-ho, who, for those of you who don't know, he's the Brad Pitt of Korea. Through our, we've been around since 2009. Our experience has shown us the following. Number 1, we need to license the best content that comes up from every country. Number 2, we need to have some sort of an exclusive window for this content. Content, believe it or not, can be commoditized. It cannot be made available anywhere and everywhere without a solid monetization structure. And lastly, if DramaFever keeps providing the best content we can get our hands on, showcasing the best light possible, I think that we're going to get an audience for you guys. What does this premium positioning mean? Right now, DramaFever has 3 revenue streams, which we'll talk about in a second. But on DramaFever.com, we have our website and we have our apps. Everything is made in-house with the ultimate attention to detail and customer experience. When we go into distribution channels and syndication, we choose the top channels to showcase your content. Now, we put a lot of thought on how we distribute your content. There are sites that we use, like Netflix and Hulu, to maximize the value to our clients. And there's channels like YouTube that we use to maximize the marketing potential of your content in our territories. When we talk about best-in-class monetization structure, we have a 3-tiered approach. We have ad sales, which compose about 50% of our total revenue. We have a growing subscription business, which is about 20%. And the syndication business we spoke about, which is 30% of our business. Our top clients right now will generate 7 figures a year. And they will have, as you might have guessed, extensive catalogs with us. And our not-so-successful partners make 0. And we co-invest with them in the sense that we've spent the money and the resources to do post-production and subtitling. So my guess is that we're going to have a shift towards the quality content. We say no as much as we say yes in terms of content licensing because there is an investment on both parts. And lastly, the goal is really to unlock the value of global content. When we started DramaFever with Korean content in 2009, piracy was rampant. You could watch every episode of every show broadcast in Korea in any of 36 websites illegally. And that has just about disappeared, at least in our territory. And I think that if we keep doing what we're doing right now, getting better and better content, there is a bright future for global content, at least in North America. The 2 deals that I'd like to highlight today that were signed very recently. Fuji TV has agreed to do an exclusive deal with DramaFever for North America, guaranteeing us about a dozen titles, many of them simulcast to the Korean, to the Japanese broadcast schedule. And we have selected a group of telenovelas from Telemundo, who has also partnered with us to distribute their content in North America. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, so thank you all very much indeed. I sort of find it both fascinating and slightly baffling. And when I hear that you're sort of partnering with Netflix, I just sort of, my mind starts sort of turning and sort of tying itself in a knot. I'm like, but hold on, aren't you competing with Netflix? And how are you partnering with? So I think it would be interesting for this room to let's just have a little conversation about what is the opportunity, because I mean I hear the opportunity that people in this room could reach new markets with their content, right? So that seems to be the most obvious opportunity, which is you've been geographically limited, and Nigerian content has been being pushed around on wheelbarrows, and now suddenly the world can see that content. But is this a genuinely new and additional opportunity, do we think, or is this the replacement of the old opportunity? I mean, I'm going to start with you at the end. Sara, I mean, do you think is this just, are we just watching the end of broadcast television and essentially, this is just the new version of the old opportunity, or is this a genuinely new market, do you think, that's opening up?
I'm not sure. Oh, this is working.
It's all good.
So I think I would divide the answer into two parts. Coming from content previously, I think if you're looking at it from the perspective of developed markets, then yes, it's sort of the same story. For the most part, the broadcasters, the distributors, know how to reach the individuals, the content, the distribution channels. The amount of license fees that you get from them is established. So crossing borders in that case, or let's take the example of going to a developed market like Korea or Japan, it's not new, right?
Yeah.
Now, what is new, I think, it's really getting your content, which is premium in your market, into the developing market, and that's what we do with our partners. So going into Indonesia, right? How do you play in that market? Going to Thailand, how do you play in that market? How do you get into China, right? And get there and actually create a presence, build market awareness, and then followed by that, monetization. And I think from that perspective, it is a new game, and it continues to be a new opportunity for the content partners.
And Sergey, do you see this as an opportunity primarily to bring foreign content to the Russian market, or do you think this is an opportunity to evolve the Russian market in its own right?
Well, I guess both of those. I would say that we're definitely a new opportunity for a lot of producers to bring content to the Russian markets. For example, even the major studios, they're not being able to distribute their television shows in Russia for a long time now, because television broadcasters in Russia would mostly produce their own shows because it's much more cost effective. And so we've got a lot of content that has a lot of value in it, but there is no distribution partner in Russia that can actually bring it to the viewers, and we are now the one. So this is definitely a new opportunity, which so the market was going to close for a while, but now we definitely expand the limits. And as for evolving the Russian market, we know that there is almost the same amount of Russians living outside of Russia as living inside Russia. So there is another Russia somewhere outside, and we are going to get and catch that audience, and this is one of the moves that we're looking to make next. And we believe that we can expand the borders for Russian content and plus become an international player in a way, because it's really, once you understand the patterns of consumption, you can basically access a lot of similar markets. So we believe that this is all a new opportunity, not just a new broadcasting. This is something new that's coming in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because in a way you're bringing, I mean, I know that you're also showing Russian content to the Russian diaspora, but you're bringing the world's content to the Russian market, and in a way, Jason, you're doing the opposite thing, right? Which is you're bringing Nigerians' content to the world, and yet, both of them, both plays in a way are about a niche, aren't they? I mean, one is it's a big niche, I grant you, but it's still. It still could be described as a niche, couldn't it? And I mean, do you think that language and culture will replace geography as the sort of defining... Jason, I'm going to ask you this question. I mean, just talk to me about the way in which this technology changes the idea of the niche and the relationship of audiences and geography, and how do you see that?
So, so I was in New York a few months ago, and I was talking to a lady from Jamaica.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, you live in Lagos? Amazing! Like everyone lives in big houses and drives big cars in Lagos." And I was like, "Well, where the hell have you got that from?" Every single Nollywood movie, it's not based on, "Whoa, we're so poor, we're living on $2 a day." It's, well, no, if a student drives like a Range Rover Sport and lives in like some humongous like mansion.
Yeah.
But in terms of especially Nigeria, it has a very sort of concrete perception in most people's minds.
Yeah.
Nollywood gives someone a different perspective of that. So I think in terms of, I guess, doing a great job for Nigeria, I think that sort of is of massive benefit. But at the same time, I think, you know, the West has largely forgotten Nigeria as like as a big market. I think Hollywood has definitely sort of forgotten about them in terms of how do you actually get legal things in Nigeria. To buy a legal DVD in Nigeria of like Iron Man 3 is basically impossible.
Yeah.
It literally is impossible. But it's a country of over 100 and like how many countries have more than 150 million people in this world? There's not many of them. So I think the world has forgotten about Nigeria, but Nigeria has kind of created something for itself.
Yeah.
And I would love to not have the international market and just have Nigeria. If I had Nigeria, I would basically be having 20, 30 million people. Like there's 15 million people.
And
in
when you say
Lagos.
by having Nigeria, you mean
Access.
if iROKO was the place where all Nigerian people gathered to watch Nigerian-generated content throughout the world, that for you looks like a really, really great business.
If Nigeria had the internet that the UK had 5 years ago, we'd have 15, 20 million uniques in a heartbeat. Because literally, terrestrial TV in Nigeria is like government propaganda, and then like black and white fuzzy screens, and you're sort of like playing around with the aerial to try and catch something else. There is literally nothing.
Yeah. So that really is a new market. That's not the old market turning into this market. That's just a completely new market. And so, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you came, obviously, we were talking before this panel, you know, you came from a world where you were distributing, you know, Korean drama to the North American market largely, and now you're adding Hispanic drama, and you're adding. So in a way, you're going from super serving a niche to super serving a number of niches. I mean, what's your strategy around
That's
niche?
right. I think the thing that most big media companies struggle with is, you know, how do you monetize effectively online? How do you get new audiences that are relevant to your content? And you know, we have a business model that actually works, and it doesn't need to be limited to just the Korean or Asian content. So, having said that, going back to the question about how does this work with in relation to other established players like a Hulu and Netflix, and how does that affect traditional media? I have two really quick things to say about that. And the first one is, you know, we work on a windowing strategy. So, you know, DramaFever.com caters to what in anime they call the otaku crowd, right? The really fervent fan-based folks that they need to see it as soon as an episode has launched internationally or in their home country. They need to watch it with subtitles. And then we have windowing strategies. After that, it goes to Hulu to maximize on their ad revenue potential, and then it goes on to Netflix. Everything after a whole season has ended, and it's the last window.
And in that context, you're essentially becoming a distributor at that point, aren't you?
That's right. And then in our way of thought, you know, the more eyeballs you get into this content, always away from commoditization and always looking towards monetization, maximum monetization. It's a little tricky, but it adds the most value to the content owner, and that's what we always focus on. And how it relates to traditional media, it's funny, it goes the other way around for us. I mean, we focus on content that traditionally, except for the Telemundo deal, that usually they don't have a window in the US. You want to get into the linear channel, but it's too hard. Well, what we're doing right now is we're proving that there's a market for Korean dramas, Japanese dramas, Spanish historical pieces. And then through our investors and other partnerships, seeing if it makes sense to put that on linear television, which would be a great opportunity for international content owners.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, as you say, it's impossible to find a DVD of Iron Man 3 legally in Nigeria. You know, it was impossible for North American audiences to see Korean drama. You know, it was legally. It was impossible for Russian audiences to see certain kinds of content, you know. And certainly in terms of what Viki does on the subtitle, I mean, that is an amazing story, right? That the crowd made that possible. So in many ways, what we're seeing, it seems to me, is that, you know, broadcast is a technology that has to create mass audiences in local markets, and you guys are exploiting, you know, what was its strength, but now potentially is its weakness, is it? To super serve niches and to serve niches that just weren't there before. And is that something that is just an inevitable shift? Do you see as Viki's, this is an inevitable shift away from local markets, something for everyone, to sort of global niches very specifically served? Do you think global taste, what I'm trying to ask is, do you think global taste is shifting away from, oh, it's great, everyone watches it, to that's for me, that speaks to me, that content?
I think that as everyone sort of becomes more globalized, you know, sort of seeing diaspora sort of moving around the world, and the amount of student exchanges that are happening all around the world, we see that the culture exchanges are happening on an ongoing basis. Yeah. And so that actually adds into the taste in terms of their interest in content. Yeah. And so what we're doing and what Viki is doing is really serving the needs of the audience, right? Recognizing that the audience today doesn't just want to watch the content necessarily from within their home country. Yeah. We know that 85% of what they watch, for example, in the States, is actually not Hollywood content. They're watching content from all over the world. Yeah. They're finding it in all different ways, right? So what we're doing is provide them with one place, or one of the few places, that they can come and enjoy the content that they like, in the language that they choose. Okay,
so let's just talk. I'm fed up with all this good news. Let's talk about the challenges. Let's talk about the problems for a moment. I mean, there must be. I mean, you've obviously all had to climb, as you said. You know, even this time last year, we'd have had half this room, and you know, most of you weren't speaking last year at all, and Jason, you were speaking in a broom cupboard over the road, and you know, so you've all had to climb significant mountains, and so Sergey, I'll start with you. I mean, what do you think the really big challenges facing this section? I mean, I'll ask you to speak for the industry for a moment, if I may. You know, what do you think the big challenges facing the four of you guys are now in this space?
Well, I would name three, I guess, and the first one and the biggest one is that the distributors and the content owners are still thinking in territories. They're not thinking in. They're still thinking in windows and territories. And the way that we've established it here is that it's all moving to actually getting your audience globally. Yeah. And it's really. It's a game changer in a way, and it's a conception that they have to install in their brains, and it takes a while. And so, for example, if I say I just want to reach Russians all around the world, they say no. What countries are you going to be in? And I say, come on, do you use your iPad? You arrive at the airport of any city, you turn it on. You're not owned by your country. And I guess this is one of the biggest challenges, because most of the players here are trying to transfer some local content to the global ones, and this is a big thing. So it would be much easier for every single one of us if we could get this content without the territory limitations and get some new conceptions on getting the actual niches, and that would be languages and cultural niches. Yeah. And the second one would still be piracy, I guess. And in very different way applied to every single player in this room, but still affecting us all greatly. But I think the bright side here is the devices, and mostly because those are the closed environments, and they are doing very good job fighting that. Yeah. And on smart TVs, you basically wouldn't find almost any pirated. You wouldn't access. You would have an access to some pirated content, but you'll have to do a great job to do that. And since the consumption is moving from web to to the devices, I guess this is when we will see piracy affecting us less and less with every single month or year, evidently.
Yeah.
So, and the third one is the greediness. I would say greed, but well, people are not trying to co-invest, and since we're exploiting a new territory, they're trying to get as much revenue, as much money from our investments that we have as a minimum guarantees or as some payments, and they're not trying. It's really hard to get them to co-invest in the whole stuff and get the revenues in a year or two that will like be 10 digits, 10 times more.
So they're treating essentially what is an entrepreneurial space like a really, really developed space. And
and they're just they're trying to apply the same rules as they apply to traditional.
Well, there are a lot of distributors in the room, so I hope you're all hearing that. This is an entrepreneurial space. Give them a break. And would anyone add? So that was piracy. That was territories not global, and we'll call it greediness. Okay. Would anyone add to that, Jason? What would you add as a challenge that you face there?
I think monetization is probably like the thing which keeps me up at night is monetization. I think we've done okay monetizing considering the very relatively low cost base of the content, but. You know, we take, so we're VC backed. We take investor money, we hand it to producers. Then we hire a bunch of people and try and figure out how to make a difference and pay the rent and stuff. So I think there is a challenge where, and we've seen like price inflation in Nollywood, strangely enough.
Presumably because you've arrived with your big barrow of cash. Well,
you've
only got yourself to blame, right?
But with that sense, like, if you're trying to organize and like exploit the value in something, sometimes you have to change the nature of the people on the ground, and I guess that's where the bags of cash came. If I had a choice, I wouldn't have.
No, I got it.
But I think the key thing is monetization. I think globally, people just don't want to pay for things. If I could...
But is that because of a cultural... Do advertisers say to you, oh, yeah, but your market's not worth... I mean, because, you know, there's this thing like, oh, well, you know, there's an American eyeball's worth a lot more than a Nigerian eyeball.
110%. So it's a question of, like, the Nigerians in America.
Yeah.
So our audience in America is, like, sort of, like, 350, 400,000. It's too small for, like, every agency. So we're basically stuck with, like, spammy kind of crazy ads. Otherwise, we turn off our ad partners at all. And, you know, you talked about premium. We don't have the luxury of premium. We work with like 17 different sort of display ad partners and stuff like that. So, and then there's the culture in the West where video online is free. In Russia, people expect video online to be free to some degree. So in Nigeria, people still expect to pay. So even if it is pirated, they still pay. So there's a culture of paying.
Well, because they were used to paying for these discs, right? So whereas we were all used to ad-supported television, right?
Absolutely. So like terrestrial TV like is just terrible. So people will pay, or even if they pirated the digital signals from like the satellite players, they still pay something. So I think there is a problem where the production houses want ever increasing sort of more amounts of money, because it's always going to go up. It's never going to go down. And then obviously we're trying to figure out how to monetize that. And I think that is probably my biggest issue, is that how can I monetize this stuff better?
Well, I mean, you know, it's interesting because I was very struck by your phrase in your presentation. I'm sure you're rather pleased when you came up with supersizing the pie. I would have been. But I'm sure if I was a distributor here, and I'm talking about, and you know, to your point, Sergey, about globalization, I mean, there used to be 100 pies. Right, and these guys, the distributor says 100 pies, and now I'm hearing there's one big pie, right? So it's a big pie, and we've supersized it. So I think that the debate out in the minds of the people here must be, but is the big pie going to be worth as much as the 100 pies? You know, and I guess that everybody in this new space is thinking, God, which way do we go here? I mean, what would you say to that question, Suk? I mean, you're dealing with people from all around the world. That's right. You're syndicating. You've got windows. You've got 3 monetization tiers.
So I'll tell you what the biggest challenge for us is. You know, there was a whole ruckus when Netflix launched House of Cards. Just everybody binge watching. It's just huge. They spent tens of millions of dollars in just marketing. In the 2 seasons was $100 million. Every piece of content that we license, we believe it's a house of cards. And we think it's really that good, right? If you look at some of more recent titles that are featured on DramaFever.com, I mean, it will knock your socks off. But how do you compete with the established players that are pumping in money into the marketing stream? We look, AMC is a great example. For those of you who don't know, I think a few Sundays ago was the last episode of Breaking Bad. Huge title. And AMC is one of the investors in DramaFever, right? And they're looking at it, and I mean, the content is great, but I refuse to live in a world where everybody watches the same show. No. It just doesn't make any sense. But then how do you get it out there? So I do believe in many different pies, and that the folks focus on their own specialty. Like ours is global content, hands down, global content. But how do we connect with those folks that don't even know we have that content available, right? So marketing for us is one of the bigger challenges.
Okay, so let's talk about strategic responses to the challenge. I mean, Sara, we're looking at these challenges, and obviously, I'm sure you share many of the challenges these guys think. I mean, what do you think I mean, I'm sure the stuff you can't talk about, but of that which you can speak, what is your company doing to meet these strategic challenges in the next 18 months? So,
strategic challenges from the perspective of content partners.
Well, I mean, there's some challenges facing the space, right? Unrealistic expectation, piracy,
absolutely,
consumer behavior, technology. I mean,
so from our perspective, because our strategy from content acquisition or even distribution partnerships is completely additive. And what that means is that, and that's actually part of my struggle when we talk with new content categories, let's say Taiwan or Turkish or, pick any number of them, Colombia. It's explaining to our content partners that we are more than happy to work with you in markets where you don't already have traditional media licensee who is very strong and providing you with 90% of your revenue. So we're happy to say worldwide minus all of those territories. And as a result of that, we can actually increase the size of pie. Where we play with them is actually all fully additive.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what we mean when we say supersize.
Okay.
And on the topic of sort of how do we compete in a fairly noisy market, right?
Yes.
And we are in 200 countries around the world.
Yeah.
And so part of, I think, why we've been able to compete is because of our community. And so we thank our lucky stars for our communities every day. They do spend anywhere between, this is shocking data to me whenever I think about it, is they spend anywhere between 10 hours to 40 hours a week on Viki, subtitling, communicating, hanging out with other people around the world. So that actually gives you a sense of how people are very keen to find others who have like-minded interests. Yeah. And conversations about entertainment is one of the most prevalent, in dinner tables, right? Mm-hmm. Within just even our immediate community, let alone across on the other side of the world. Yeah. And so that community is and that speed. So a very hot content within 24 hours of being, uploaded by ourselves, our operation team, could be translated to 20 languages. That speed is something that most, professional translation, etc., professional or unprofessional translation can't beat. Yeah. And so that is what enables us to sort of overcome some of these challenges. Yeah. But we do spend a lot of time explaining ourselves because we are very different in our business model.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at the moment, just to be a video on demand service in itself is a point of difference. But over time, as this market gets more crowded, as et cetera, as more people understand how it works. I mean, do we think? I mean, before we met here on stage, Jason, your office was saying, is the future of VOD in commissioning? I mean, are you guys going to become point of difference, it seems to me, is going to become crucial, isn't it? Because as DramaFever goes multilingual, then it becomes more similar to what Viki's doing, and and then you start licensing Nigerian content, and then suddenly you guys are not sitting nicely chatting in the corner. I must see you in New York. It's like, so it's coming, isn't it? Right. So how are you going to differentiate yourselves? Are you going to become the AMC of the future? Do you want to talk to that, Sergey?
Well, I guess the 2 points I will build on what Sara is saying. We are definitely believing in the community because television or broadcasters are creating the community. It's just they never mostly use them, and people don't. Well, when you come to work and you discuss the latest show, it's you are a part of the community, but you don't really feel it. And online, you can build it, and we believe in that. So we believe that we would create a large community of fans of the content that we have, and we will give them targeted recommendations and thus getting them even more involved. Yeah. And so this is like our vision of what we're going to do. So it's something like called social TV. And of course we're willing, and next year we're planning to invest some money into our own production because we really believe that this is and plus, as Netflix is exploring new ways of consumption, like putting all of the episodes of one series at the same time, we believe we have a lot of things to do in that field and explore the new way of consuming this. So we believe that this is our way, and this is where we're gonna win.
Yeah. And I mean, looking forward, where do you think it's going? I mean, where do you think that the whole world will be video on demand? I mean, this is a panel on video on demand, but will MIP be a video on demand, essentially a video on demand conference in 5 years' time, do you think?
Well, I'll answer that with a short anecdote. The founder of HBO and the chairman of AMC is a gentleman by the name of Chuck Dolan. He's in his mid-80s, and he came to our offices after they invested in our company, and we were shocked, right? Because he took a helicopter from Long Island. There were 7 cars parked right outside our building, and it was literally, him and his posse. Yeah. We put him into a conference room and coffee, water. Yeah. We had,
Look busy.
And he spoke twice, right? And the first one he was looking at his watch. Why am I here, and who are you? Which is at that point very existentialist question. So we go through our presentation really quickly and introductions and whatnot. And the second thing he said to us was, you remind me of a young HBO.
Right.
So, and this gentleman 60 years ago sold boxes, right? And then had old content, and then moved on to proprietary content, and and now it's a race, right? So for us, the future is uncertain in terms of how you grow. Is it co-investments, and we just did one of those right now, or is it becoming the largest distributor of niche content or global content? But again, going back to sort of the pillars is curation, right? If you can get great content with partners that understand your business model, and you can put in a premium positioning and monetize it, I think that in itself would be a great doing.
Yeah. I mean, Sarah, do you agree? It seems strange in a world where word of mouth is so powerful that people are still talking about marketing to me.
I think marketing, at the core of marketing, is really about the audience, right? So give the audience what they want is sort of the Hollywood mantra, and really the mantra of all the different content partners. Where I think we see the future is a new way to monetize actually video beyond the advertising, beyond the subscription base. Now, as a part of Rakuten, there's a unique opportunity that we're going to be exploring. It's actually in association with the social TV, where imagine if you're watching your favorite show, and at that time, while you're watching the favorite show, there's a scene with an amazing bag, and that bag happens to be merchandised by that content partner. Warner, Disney. Actually, many of the content partners have their own merchandise business. Sure. And now, at that right time, you're served up an opportunity at one click to make that purchase. Yeah. That in-app purchase, that linkage to e-commerce is something that we see very much as a part of future, and that is directly linked to leveraging data and analytics, so that the advertising or the things that you merchandise and sell to the audience is highly relevant and therefore not disruptive to their user, to their online experience.
And I have 2 words to add to that. We have a very simple formula of how we see the future, and us getting the ground shared with the broadcasters. We believe that the scripted content would go more and more consumed online or through VOD services, and the non-scripted genre would be the basis of the broadcaster's business as it develops. So because this
sports and news,
and shows like Voice and stuff where you have to create massive audiences and it goes on and go on. So this is how we see it, pretty simple, and we believe that the Netflix is moving it towards that, and in 3 years you will see that a lot of scripted content will not even go on air. It will be just released through online, and the non-scripted will still be in there.
God, that might actually be true. Jason.
So the way we see things is much more simple. Obviously, you guys are much more advanced than us, but like last year we started funding movies from script.
Yeah.
So someone brings scripts to us. We like the script. We basically write them a check. So rather than writing them a check after the fact, we now basically like co-invest on like a very fundamental level. So we now start to own content. The bags of money strategy of basically pretty much most VOD services, Netflix included, it has its limitations when,
when there's more guys with more bigger bags of money, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our view is that ultimately the value of content ends up with the people who own the content.
Yeah.
So we see ourselves as like in the very near future, like just being significant sort of like owners of like Nollywood content. So we see ourselves literally like just backing completely into the content process. And when I talked about monetization, for us to justify some of the prices that we charge for these movies, we just have to bundle other things in there. So we distribute global TV. So previous to when we started the company, like very few airlines had Nollywood movies on there. Now we have like 12 airline partners who we have someone in London who sits there selling to airlines. So it has nothing to do with the VOD opportunity. We just have to find some way to like justify how we basically give those bags of money. So we need to slow down the bags of money strategy and focus on actually kind of like helping like, I guess, advance the industry, but at the same time, at least limiting the amount of money we actually have to pay out.
Yes, I mean, I think that's interesting, isn't it? In a world where the platforms are shifting all the time, actually, if you look at the big traditional publishing businesses, anyone who baked a platform into their business is struggling because platform shift is just... And actually, of course, you could say that IP rights are where everything begins and ends. So out of interest, just raise your hand if you think that in 5 years' time, MIP is going to be a VOD conference. Do you think, anyone who thinks MIP is going to be a VOD conference, raise your hands. Okay.
I think it should be.
Interesting. All right. Well, listen, thank you all very much. Thank you all very much. These guys are going to be outside now for a little bit. I think it's been fascinating. Thanks. Thank you.